They called it a toy, a wooden toy. In the summer of 1940, while London burned and the Channel glowed red with sunset and searchlights, the Luftwaffe's analysts passed around a British blueprint and smirked. A twin-engine bomber with no guns, no turrets, built from birch and balsa, glued like a wardrobe and baked like a loaf of bread. You didn't fight modern war with furniture. You fought it with aluminum and arrogance. Geoffrey de Havilland disagreed. Britain's problem was brutal and simple. You could smelt fighters, or you could smelt bombers, but with aluminum rationed to the atom, you could not build both in quantity. De Havilland walked into the Air Ministry with a heresy that sounded like a joke. Stop fighting over metal. Britain had wood, forests of it, and a nation of craftsmen who could turn timber and glue into strength. Piano makers in High Wycombe, cabinet builders in their shuttered shops, boatwrights who understood grain like surgeons understand muscle. Retool them, he said. Teach them to make wings. He offered a second heresy to sweeten the first. Speed is a better gun than any gun. Strip the aircraft of turrets, gunners, and armor. Give it a crew of 2 and a skin as smooth as wet glass, then fit it with Merlins and let it outrun danger. Not a flying fortress, an uncatchable scalpel. The Air Ministry approved one prototype as if granting permission for a controlled failure. Build it. Show us it doesn't kill the test pilot. Then we'll be done with this wooden fantasy. The fantasy took shape in ovens and clamping jigs. The fuselage wasn't frames and rivets. It was a sandwich. Birch ply outside, balsa at the core, birch inside, cured until the glue became part of the wood itself. The wings were box-sparred and skinned, compound curves pressed into aerodynamic truth by men who yesterday made sideboards. When the yellow-painted prototype lifted off Hatfield and the Merlins sang in chorus, the numbers came back as disbelief. Faster than predicted, steadier than expected, longer-legged than anyone dared to hope. It wasn't a toy. It was a problem for Germany. Across the Channel, the joke hardened into dogma. Wooden airframes warped, rotted, and burned. A bomber without guns was suicide. Recognition manuals treated the new silhouette like a curiosity. Instructors told pilots what they wanted to believe. If you meet one, it will be easy. Standard stern attack. Aim for the engines. Then a camera ship went to Bordeaux and came home with photographs, and not a single bullet hole. Then 3 fast shadows knifed through Norwegian air, dropped bombs into target windows, and vanished while the sirens were still finding their breath. Then a Messerschmitt slid in behind a twin-engine intruder at sea level, squeezed power to the stops, and watched the intruder simply walk away. Pilots radioed claims their commanders dismissed as excuses. The wooden thing can't be that fast. It was that fast. A loaded Mosquito cruised in the high 300s and dashed beyond 400 with clean air ahead. The Bf 109 could match that in a dive, maybe at altitude, in perfect trim, with a pilot willing to flirt with engine limits. The FW 190 could too, on paper. But paper is not weather, and paper is not fuel state, and paper is not the sick feeling when your target is a dwindling dot and the Channel is getting nearer and your tank is getting emptier. At interception altitudes, the Mosquito made a mockery of geometry. Below you, it used your dive to escape. Level with you, it held you at arm's length and slid away. Above you, it was a rumor. It didn't just run, it did work. Precision had been an aspiration in 1940. It became a profession in 1942. The Mosquito's clean nose steadied bomb sights the way a surgeon steadies a scalpel. Oslo learned what surgical meant when 4 aircraft arrived at rooftop height and 3 bombs walked through the Gestapo's windows. Eindhoven learned when Mosquito pathfinders marked the Phillips radio works with immaculate candor, leaving the heavy bombers nothing to do but follow colored fire into the bullseye. Berlin learned the hard way when the RAF scheduled a daylight visit to coincide with Hermann Göring's national broadcast. The wooden ghosts arrived at the top of the hour, and the Reich's radio went dead mid-sentence. Engineers can argue payloads. Propaganda never forgets silence. The mission that made the legend took place at lunchtime in Amiens. A prison, thick walls, French lives, and the Gestapo's timetable for executions. 19 Mosquitoes crossed the channel low enough to count hedgerow fence posts, time to strike while guards queued for stew and prisoners were in their cell. Lead bombs tore gates open. The next wave shredded barracks. The last wave bit precisely at administration and mess. 3 minutes from first blast to last. Debris striking wings, aircraft climbing over their own shock waves, prisoners already running through dust and sunlight. Some died, many escaped. A dozen walked out who were hours from the wall. Group Captain Percy Pickard didn't make it home. The mission did. It proved something bomber streams could not. Sometimes speed and nerve are the only armor that matters. Night fell, and the Mosquito came back with teeth. 4 Hispano 20s in the belly, 4 Brownings in the nose, and a secret the RAF disguised with carrots and a wink. Cat's eyes. Cunningham, they said, could see in the dark. In truth, his radar operator could see in radio waves. The interception dance was always the same. Ground controllers vectoring a hunter onto a blip. Airborne radar taking the handover. A black shape coalescing at 1,000 yards. Throttles forward, slide beneath the German bomber's tail. Settle at 200, a flick of the wrist to lift the nose, then a 1-second press that tore 30 cannon shells through metal and fuel and bone. Heinkel, Dornier, Junkers. The names lost their talismanic power under a Mosquito's muzzle flash. Then the hunters hunted hunters, stalking Bf-110s and Ju-88 night fighters as they tried to stalk the bomber stream. The wooden airplane that couldn't take a hit refused to offer one. Göring's mask slipped in public. It makes me furious when I see the Mosquito. He spat to a unit he needed to inspire. I turn green and yellow with envy. The British, who can afford aluminum, build a beautiful wooden aircraft out of their piano factories and give it a speed we cannot reach. That line made every RAF mess roar with laughter. In German squadron huts, it made something else. Permission to fail. If the boss can't catch it, neither can you. Speed is spectacle. Endurance is economics. The Mosquito did arithmetic better than anything with turrets. A Lancaster was a miracle of payload, but it cost 4.5 Mosquitoes to buy and generations of man-hours to crew and maintain. The wooden wonder burned less fuel, lost fewer crews, and delivered ordnance at a rate accountants adore. Loss rates tell the story without romance, under 1% per mission for Mosquitoes, triple to 7 times that for the heavies at the worst points of the night war. A crew's odds moved from prey to possible. In squadrons that flew both, the posting board felt like a lottery with one winning ticket. Production proved the wisdom of distributed industry. You could bomb a single factory into scrap. You could not bomb 100 furniture shops into silence. Britain built them by the 100, then the 1,000. Canada and Australia joined, feeding local timbers into global war. By the time anyone in Germany took the wood seriously enough to copy it, the copy collapsed under adhesive failures and quality control nightmares. Focke-Wulf's answer looked right in silhouette and wrong in every way that mattered. The glue plant was bombed. The idea was not enough. Numbers pile up, but they miss something human. Talk to the men who flew her. They'll tell you about the way she lifted, like she wanted to fly, about the sound of merlins in close harmony, and the feel of laminar air on a wooden skin that didn't shatter like tin, about crossing the North Sea at wave height so low you could smell salt in the cockpit, about sliding between church spires to put a bomb through a pane of glass because a Frenchman with a code name had someone on the inside counting steps, about coming home with splinters in the tail and laughter on the radio because a pair of Mondanites tried and failed and broke off before the coast. About the odd calm of night hunting, the radar operator's steady voice, the black bulk of an enemy bomber filling the canopy, and then the white blossom of fuel and fire and the hard bank right to avoid flying through a funeral. The critics were not all wrong. Wood needs care, glue needs the right recipe. Tropical humidity could creep in and spoil both if you weren't vigilant. The Mosquito's answer was sober and systematic. Improved adhesives, better sealing, changes in maintenance practice. Problems that would have ended an improvised gimmick became engineering to-dos that a mature program solved. By 1944, the toy was a global production line with a manual as thick as any metal aircraft. By then, something else had changed. Doctrine. The Mosquito didn't just beat fighters, it beat ideas. The gospel that a bomber needed guns died under its shadow. Strip the weight, go faster, hit smaller. Survive by not being there when the bullets arrive. The English Electric Canberra read the sermon and rewrote it for jets. The Americans licensed the idea and flew it as the Martin B-57. Then, the Aviation philosophy evolved again. If you cannot outrun radar, outthink it. The B-2 is a grandson of the Mosquito in attitude, if not in materials. The lineage runs also through weapons. Barnes-Wallis showed with Tall Boy and Grand Slam that penetration matters more than blast against the right target. The Mosquito showed that delivery matters more than tonnage. Modern bunker busters and precision munitions marry both. The wooden airplane and the earthquake bomb came from the same British habit. Define the problem honestly, then solve that problem, not the last wars. The Luftwaffe tried to laugh and learned to swear. Fighter pilots who once plucked Wellingtons from the night like fruit found themselves burning fuel on hopeless chases or watching sight pictures expire before their trigger squeeze. Night bomber crews who once owned darkness met a predator they could not shake. Ground controllers who once vectored intercepts with confidence learned to say, "Target lost, return to base." Morale is a material of war, brittle under heat. The Mosquito's greatest payload may have been humiliation. After the shooting stopped, the numbers remained rude. Nearly 8,000 built, dozens of rolls. Bombs dropped with uncanny economy. Hundreds of enemy aircraft killed in the dark. Thousands of reconnaissance photos that let planners see the war before they fought it. Loss rates that meant crews lived to grow old. Production that laughed at bottlenecks. A price tag that made quartermasters smile despite themselves, and a service life long enough to watch jet contrails stitch the same sky it once owned. You can still stand beneath one and touch the skin that scandalized an empire. It feels warm compared to metal, alive under lacquer, handiwork you could imagine making if someone taught you how to read grain and curve. It is an artifact of a nation that could not afford the obvious solution, and so invented a better one. The Germans called it a weak wooden toy. History calls it what it was. Britain's fastest answer to a slow, grinding war, and the worst nightmare of men who thought speed belonged only to them. If you want to break a doctrine, build the machine that makes the doctrine irrelevant. The Mosquito did that with 2 engines, 2 crewmen, and the courage to leave the guns on the drawing board. It didn't win with what it carried, it won with what it didn't. And that's why a wooden airplane from a furniture town beat the metal empire that laughed at it.